Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2 and Online Paddle School. We are back here on YouTube, and this week we're breaking down and talking about distance per stroke. In this video, we're going to go over distance per stroke, its effect on your overall speeds, and how to utilize it as an effective training tool. Distance per stroke gives a good reflection of how efficient your stroke is and how strong you are as a paddler. When we go into a gym, it's very linear and simple to grab a weight. The more weight you can pick up, the stronger you are. In paddling, we don't have quite a one-to-one metric beyond looking at just the speed that we're going. Distance per stroke and speed go hand in hand, but it is another idea that we can hone in on, and the better that we can understand it, the better we can elaborate on it and get faster over time. And our distance per stroke is honing in on the glide of boats that are 18, 19, and 20 feet and very skinny. These ideologies change based on different vessels, but looking at the Surski and the K1, the outrigger canoe specifically in this video. Distance per stroke is how far the vessel moves every time you take a stroke. The only way to get this information is by having some sort of a GPS unit that is able to track your strokes per minute, and with that information, it works backwards to figure out how far you're going per stroke. Simply having time and distance only gives us a small piece of the puzzle when identifying how efficient you are as a paddler. Distance per stroke is important again in identifying how strong you are and how effective your technique is overall. If you have no idea what your stroke rate is, you have no idea what your distance per stroke is, and this is something that your training should revolve around. The other metric that we can improve on is trying to get more strokes per minute, but for the majority of paddlers, their technique and overall skill level does not facilitate increasing strokes per minute to immediately meaning that you will go faster. The detriment to this is that you are going to work incredibly hard trying to move faster, but because the catch is limited and the grab on the water is limited and your motion is limited, you're not getting the same return for this energy investment that you could by simply trying to get more out of each stroke instead of taking more bad strokes. So looking at this from the perspective of a kayak, how do I get more distance per stroke? Increasing the amount of length that you have in the water is an effective way to getting more distance per stroke. The best way to achieve this is better positive blade angle by having this top hand further back than your bottom hand. As the blade tip interacts with the water, this increases the amount of length that we're going to have as we take the stroke. If my top hand shoots forward too much, now my paddle is going to be touching the water much closer to me. So now as I take this stroke, I'm only interacting with the water for a much shorter period of time. This is going to hinder the distance that I create. The more length I can get in the water, the longer the boat is traveling with the blade in the water. And then when the blade is removed from the water, my energy and all of that potential force now creates more glide as the boat rockets forward before setting up the next stroke. So having positive blade angle is an effective way for increasing this length in front of us, increasing the amount of time that we're in the water for, and allows us more time to use larger muscles as we go through the motion. This is the second idea in getting more distance per stroke, is using the whole body. If I push with my top arm and pull with my bottom arm, the amount of force that I can create here is relatively limited by my arm strength alone. So now as I get to the exit of the stroke, I haven't created a lot of force proportional to using my whole body. So now the boat doesn't have this opportunity to glide in the same way. I can set up and fire every joint in my body for one effective motion. I can get through the stroke faster, and it allows the boat to move faster between strokes. This is a very important distinction that we want to think about as we're taking these strokes, is we need the boat to glide between strokes. So a stroke rate that is inherently very high just means that you are inputting the blade back into the water before letting the boat do what it is designed to do, which is to glide. as we're looking at these metrics, if we are turning over too fast and not getting enough out of the stroke, we are actively working against the hull below us. Having a long, powerful stroke, letting the boat do some of that work, this is what everything is designed to do, and we should work around that. So looking at the canoe paddle, as we're going through, the same idea. I can get this blade way out in front of me if my top hand is a little closer to me by having my elbow bent, and this allows me much more time and length in the water to interact with the stroke. The next idea is letting this top hand travel down. Don't be afraid to have a long stroke next to you and slightly behind you. This length in the water is what allows the boat to glide forward and increase your distance per stroke. If my top arm is straight as I go in and I don't use my whole body as I'm starting the stroke, now I have a very short stroke. It is very weak. And now when I remove the blade, I haven't accomplished much and the boat does not respond with that glide, and I am limited in my distance per stroke. So let's look at some distinct metrics in understanding the distance per stroke that we're looking for, and then we can increase the strokes per minute. The lower the strokes per minute, the more time you give the boat to glide. So this is going to raise up your distance per stroke. The faster you paddle, the less time the boat has to glide, and the distance per stroke is going to drop. We want these ideas to balance out, right? We don't want an incredibly slow stroke rate, but we also don't want it incredibly high. There is a middle ground somewhere in the middle where you're going to maximize your efficiency. When we're looking at the surf ski and the kayak, for ladies, 2.25 meters per single stroke or 4.5 meters for two strokes. This would be about 7 feet per stroke on one side, and then when you do double strokes, it would be 14 feet. For men, the idea that we're looking for is about 2.5 meters per stroke, which would be about 8 feet per single stroke, 16 for the double stroke. We're looking at this metric, right? We want to hold on to that distance per stroke and then increase the stroke rate. Once the stroke rate goes too high, that number is going to drop below that 7 or 8 feet mark, meaning that we can drop the stroke rate down a little bit until that comes up. The higher your skill level, the higher the stroke rate will be, and you will hold on to that metric. The lower your skill level means that you will have a fairly slow stroke rate trying to find this distance per stroke. And this is a reflection of poor grab of the water, poor length in the water, poor movement, poor power, poor connection. And this opens up the gate for you to get better, right? You can now assess your movement because you have a tangible metric that you're trying to increase. No different than going to the gym, trying to lift more weight. So now looking at the canoe, looking at the ladies, we're looking at about 9 feet per stroke. And for men, we're looking for about 10 feet per stroke. Be about 2.75 meters for the ladies and 3 meters for the guys, approximately. Again, looking at these metrics, when you are going through the strokes per minute, if you're at 60 strokes per minute and you're getting 10 feet per stroke, you're moving the boat fairly competently. If your skill level is not quite there at 60 strokes per minute, you will be nowhere near this 10-foot metric that we're looking for. So balancing these ideas out, you want to try and get about 10 feet, then the stroke rate comes up as high as possible before that dips down. If the stroke rate goes up super high and that number plummets to 2 meters per stroke or 6 feet per stroke, you are going to be battling very much against your vessel as you're trying to move the boat. So how do you increase your distance per stroke? So just like all these things that we listed, positive blade angle, using the whole body, trying to find length in the water, and being efficient with your movement economy, it just comes from spending time in the boat and consciously thinking about moving your body differently. Majority of paddlers think, oh, I'm implementing this new idea, and you go out on the water and it's simple and easy. If it is very easy as you are on the water, you are simply repeating the same motions that you've already gone through. Going through new motion should feel arduous and frustrating and difficult because you're forcing your body to learn something that it's not acquainted with. Spending time at very low stroke rates with incredibly high amounts of pressure is an excellent drill system to make sure that you're training your body and training your movement to get more boat glide. My favorite version of this is 40 strokes per minute within the single blade and 60 strokes per minute in the double blade. So now that you cap out your strokes per minute for your workout, now you can challenge yourselves to try and get the most amount of distance per stroke within those workouts. Then you can compare that over time. The stronger you get, the more adept your motion is, the better your stroke economy becomes, the more distance per stroke that you will get over time. On these workouts, you should way overshoot the metrics that I just listed before. Then as you begin racing and increasing the strokes per minute, you're able to hold on to a larger majority of this distance per stroke and maximize your overall speed. Thank you all so much for checking out the video here going over the distance per stroke. If you need help with your distance per stroke, just assessing your overall movement, check out the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com today. We have a ton of videos to help you go through these motions and understand the concepts, and gives you drills and things to do off the water to practice these motions. When you take a lesson one-on-one, you have 60 to 90 minutes to learn everything you can from this person before they get back on an airplane and go back to wherever they're from. With the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com, you do not set a time limit. You can learn at your own rate. You can learn at your own pace. Using this as a tool gives you plenty of time to reach your goals. Don't go into the next year with the thought that I didn't make enough time to try and learn these ideas. If you want to reach your goals, it is an excellent tool that you can use to better hone your understanding of paddling and your movement in paddling. A quick shout out to all of our YouTube members, and their names are going to appear here. If you have not subscribed yet, don't forget to do so. We have a weekly vlog. The podcast will make a reappearance here on YouTube. If there are any things that you would like to see on YouTube, if there's any video ideas that you have, feel free to reach out anytime. You're approaching the winter season. I live here in Florida. It does not freeze over. If you want to fly in and paddle with me directly on Lake Hernando in Florida, feel free to reach out anytime to help schedule that. Camps, clinics, lessons, you name it, and provide boats for groups. I have all the equipment necessary. We are nearby the Tampa and Orlando international airports. If you want to fly in, we have everything that you need. Thank you all so much for checking out the YouTube channel, and we'll see you all next week for next week's paddle tip video.